it's overwhelming, but it's also our jobs.
Our job is only going to get harder.
It's worrisome.
This is something that's unprecedented.
Now is not the time to be a cowboy. No one has anything to prove. We're all in this together.
Welcome to Reporting from the Frontline of a Pandemic. I'm Maya Huter, and I'm here with Muna Moushien, the Manager of Professional Development at CBS in New York. Thanks, Muna, for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So can you just start by telling me a little bit about what you do at CBS?
Sure. So I am the Manager of Professional Development, as you mentioned, and it is my job, as well as those in my department, my fellow colleagues, to hire everybody behind the scenes at CBS. So namely the producers. I'm responsible for all entry-level staff. So that ranges from news associates to broadcast associates, associate producers, and up. There's different people in my department that are also responsible for senior producers, executive producers, managers, things like that. But we are namely responsible for the hiring of off-camera journalists.
So how have you had to adjust the way you're able to do your job now?
I think we're still adjusting, as we kind of discussed a little bit before. Everything is virtual now. So all of our team meetings, for example, we usually have a staff meeting, the Office of Professional Development, every Monday in my supervisor's office. So we can't do that anymore because no one's allowed in the broadcast center. So we've turned to Zoom. And so every morning at 10:30 a.m., we all log on and we go over our items or whatever's on our agenda for the week, whatever work we have pending, questions we may have for our supervisor. We discuss it all over Zoom. And then when it comes to my day-to-day job, every interview, every in-person interview that I would do has turned to either Skype, Zoom, in some cases even FaceTime, if we're having technical difficulties, or phone interviews. And that really is the main part of my job, is conducting interviews with candidates that are interested in working at CBS News or candidates that we're interested in. And so, I have done interviews in the past remotely or virtually with candidates that may not be able to make it to New York to interview with us at the broadcast center. But this is a constant thing now. And so it's been a month officially since we've been out of the broadcast center. We call it the BC. And, I'm still waiting to officially get into a zone or get into a comfort zone with all of this. And I think it's unfortunate for the candidates as well, because while FaceTiming and Zooming and Skype is all great, thank God for technology, it's, you can't really get a full understanding of a candidate if you're not directly sitting in front of them. So this is not the final interview for any candidates that we're doing. It's sort of just like a first step interview. And although CBS hasn't officially used the term hiring freeze, we're not officially hiring anybody at this time. So it's just delaying the process and elongating it a little bit for those who are anxious and eager and ready to get to CBS, but we just can't hire them right now because we can't even get in the building. So that's how things have been so far for me.
That was going to be my next question, actually, was just you've talked about how this is really not ideal for candidates. So you're saying they likely won't be able to get into the building, at least until things are safe.
Yeah, and the thing with CBS specifically is that I think the last update that I received, and that I know for sure, is that I think 20 or so CBS employees had been, they were found to have COVID-19 in their system. So it was March 11th that the first 2 tested positive, and they asked everyone to sort of clear the building. The following week, they asked for just a select amount of people that were involved in the editorial. We called it the skeletal staff. They were asked to come back. and to work on, CBS This Morning, CBS Evening News in DC. And I think maybe a couple days ago, last week or so, someone that was a part of that skeletal staff was also found to have tested positive for COVID-19. So then now we have at least for CBS This Morning, we have our anchors, Gail, Tony, and Anthony, filming out of their home. The show is literally filming out of their home. We have people with, multiple cameras in their living rooms. We have our correspondents doing live shots and stand-ups out of their bedrooms and, their apartment complexes and things like that. But it's been an adjustment for everyone. And we're, the only thing that we can find solace in is, and we just came up with a promo and sort of blasted it on social, is that, hashtag we're all in this together. Like, if you ever are feeling like you're alone, there's so many resources that CBS has also made available to us. Like, if we need to talk to somebody, if we need, just some medical advice, like even if we just want to speak to a therapist, they've been really great about letting us know what resources are available. So, that's how we've sort of just been getting through it.
So you would say that you're happy with the procedures and the precautions that CBS has been taking to make sure you guys are staying safe?
Absolutely. The minute that they found out that somebody tested positive that was in the building, they immediately let us know. They were very transparent, and they made sure that excuse me, everybody was sent home. So I am very, very happy with that. It would have been one thing if they didn't let us know and they had us continue to work in our space, because then you're putting more people at risk, and, people have families to go back home to, and, parents that they have to check up on that are above 65 and older, who I'm sure, are at a higher risk for this thing. So yes, I'm very happy with how they've continued to update us while we've been working from home. And I'm happy that as soon as they found out that somebody tested positive, they sent us all home immediately, which I appreciated greatly.
Mm-hmm. And I know that CBS was kind of the first broadcasting center or big, media company to close, because it was one of the first that had a positive case. Can you talk a little bit about how that felt when you first found out there was a positive case in your building?
It's interesting. I'm only smiling because it's a nervous smile, but we had a entry-level candidate within the News Associate program that sent my colleague on the professional development team an email and basically saying, hey, we are packing up our things here at the specific department, and we are getting ready to all head home. And, we hadn't heard anything officially yet. And so when we got that email from this candidate or from this news associate, we thought, wait a minute, we need to confirm this with our boss, who's the executive vice president of strategic professional development. So she's on the executive team, and if she heard something, she would have let us know. So a couple minutes after we got that email from the news associate is when a widespread note went out to the company, basically saying, we found that 2 people have tested positive. Everyone is recommended to go home. And earlier in that day too, I just remembered we had gotten a note from our supervisor and from Viacom CBS executive staff, I guess the HR department, basically saying that we are not to be doing in-person interviews anymore. And that was also the first sign of, okay, and I remember that day specifically, my colleague and I had, I think, 5 or so in-person interviews scheduled. And the first one was coming up in an hour. That candidate was already on their way. And so we got that note that we weren't supposed to be doing in-person interviews. So we canceled all of our in-person interviews. We turned them to Skype, or we scheduled them for phone or virtual interviews. And then we got the official note from the president of CBS saying, listen, everybody needs to pack up. If you feel comfortable, you can sort of finish up what you've been doing for the day. But we do recommend that everybody needs to leave the building, grab whatever it is that you need. We don't know how long this is going to be. And I don't know what it was like at other departments, but I know that our department had, we're a close-knit team, so we had constantly been updating each other and talking to each other about what we would do if it ever come to, this situation that we're at now. And so we had kind of already mentally been prepared. It was just a matter of like, okay, it's happening. Like, grab everything that you need. We don't know how long this is going to be, and head on home. And luckily, CBS, supplies everybody with a laptop that has everything that your desktop in the office would have. So I feel prepared. Like, I feel like I have everything that I, possibly could need to do my work from home. And, I've just been taking it day by day.
Right. And then on top of all of that, living in New York, which has kind of become the face of this epicenter or the outbreak, for the United States, how has that been on top of, working from home and everything?
It's been really crazy. I've had, like relatives and friends who live abroad. They've been calling me and my family constantly. And, to them, I'm sure whatever it is they're hearing from media outlets, it's very alarming. And it's alarming for us too that are, living here in New York. I have been going out for walks every day, even if, I'm definitely practicing social distancing. And it's important to go out for a walk and get some sunshine. And of course, you need to go out and get like your groceries and things like that, your essential needs. And when the weather is nice in New York, there's definitely like a good amount of people outside. Everyone's practicing the social distancing. Everyone is wearing masks and gloves and things like that, taking all measures, protective measures that they need. But when you go out at night, if you were to go out at night for whatever reason, it's definitely a ghost town. And there's an eerie feeling outside. I live in a part of New York where it's known to be very lively. I mean, there's restaurants like lined up right outside my apartment. And so usually if I were to go out on a sunny day or even at nighttime, you would see a lot of people just lined up, having dinner, having drinks, walking their dogs, what have you. But it hasn't been that way. All of the businesses are shut down. It's dark. Like, it's just very eerie. It's been very, very weird and uncomfortable. It almost feels unsafe in a way because, there's just no one outside. It's very quiet. And so to see my neighborhood go from very loud and boisterous and like you couldn't walk down the block without seeing someone that and saying hello to a neighbor, to what it is now. It's scary. It's uncomfortable. It's it makes you just want to go right back into your home and not come out until you feel safe again. But to be honest, I don't think that we're ever going to go back to normal. I don't think that things will ever be the same. And, I've seen a couple of things online that have said, like, we shouldn't go back to normal because normal wasn't working, which is why we're at where we're at now. So I don't think we'll ever go back to how we were before, which could be a good thing. But I'm very curious to see what life is going to be like for the entire world, not just my little neighborhood and me, but just for everybody all over the place after this, especially places like Italy that have, really been affected, and Iran and things like that. So I'm kind of just anxious and curious to see what that's going to be like.
Yeah, I can only imagine how strange New York feels right now, since that's so not the norm.
Yeah, very weird.
Now that you've been working from home, how have you been balancing that work life and home life, since the two are the line is blurred now between them?
So I am in the midst of preparing and renovating a whole new home office, because if and when something like this ever happens again in the future, I want to be as prepared as possible. And I should have already done this, having, set up a home office and things like that. And I kind of do have a little section in my home set up. But it's been really it's new, it's uncomfortable, it's challenging. I'm doing a handful of Zoom and Skype meetings every day. So having to find a quiet place, good lighting, having to dress professionally, get all made up like I'm getting ready to go to work and things like that. That but then also I'm just staying home. It's weird. It's finding a weird balance of, I've created an environment in my home in which when I get home from work or from a busy day every day, I've made my home so that it's a place where I immediately walk in and I just want to relax. I don't want to get into, an assignment or get my mind wrapped into, okay, I'm in working mode now. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to reverse with my mindset, I guess, in this situation is, not taking naps, not sleeping extra late, waking up and getting myself into a routine where it's like, okay, this is what I have scheduled for the day. This is what I need to do and when. And the TV is just, a couple steps away and my couch is a couple steps away. So it's constantly having to remind myself of like, you're not in vacation mode. You're not in chill mode. You got to work. So I think once I get my little office section set up, it'll help me to stay, even more focused and to feel like I'm in the office, so to speak. But it's been really, really challenging. And to be honest, I don't ever want to create an environment in my home where I walk in after a long day, because we will go back to our lives, our regularly scheduled programs at some point this year. And I am going to want to come home and just have downtime and relax. And I don't want to have that energy of like work when I come to my home, because that's not what I want to build in this space. So I don't know. I'm just trying to just figure it out slowly. And but the one thing that I've been doing is definitely setting up, my office space so that I do have a designated area where I can conduct work and stay focused and things like that.
So since for your job, you're working a lot of the time with people who are just about to start their careers in broadcast journalism, what kind of advice did you have for somebody like me who's entering the field, wanting to go in broadcast journalism, especially in a time like now?
That's a great question. And I know that yourself, along with lots of other students who are getting ready to graduate, are dealing with that. So I'm glad that you asked that. One main thing that I've been saying to folks is I know that you guys have turned, or your schools have turned to virtual learning for you to complete your classes. I mean, I see that you're doing your own work this way as well now. And the one piece of advice that I have for you is make sure that you're not staying idle and that you're doing something extra outside of your classes, outside of your assignments that are due. Make sure that you are just taking that little extra step, like building a website, building a blog, creating a YouTube channel where, you start doing these interviews with people remotely, and you have a topic. It's not like you don't know, it's not like you are struggling to find something to speak about. Like there's something that's affecting everybody right now. That's a perfect discussion to have. And there's different facets of it for everyone to cover. And it's so interesting, and there's so much time on people's hands right now that people will tune in. People are going to be interested to know, once we get out of this, how did Maya deal with this? What was she doing during all of this time that we had? How did she come out of this stronger? How did she use this time to advance herself? So that's something that as a hiring manager, I know that I'm going to be looking at. And I know that others will also be looking at you and will also be asking you, what did you do during this time and how did you make it constructive? How did you, persevere and really come out of this and make yourself a stronger journalist? Yes, we're limited. You can't go outside and do man on the street interviews with people, but you can do these virtual, Zoom interviews. You can write articles. You can do phone interviews with people and just, a different article per person or different article per person per state about how different states and people and practices are all, coming about. And that's the one piece of advice that I have, and that's consistent for every single journalist that's looking to, get their foot in the door at the entry level or they're getting ready to graduate, is continue to own your craft. Sign up for a free class. There are so many different universities that are offering free courses right now. And there's even ones that if you really want to take it a step further, you can pay for writing courses. I don't expect all college students to come out of the pocket right now and, pay for a course or things like that, but there are free opportunities and ways for you to better your skill set. with your writing. Maybe it's I used this when I was at Emerson. It was Q teleprompter. I think it still exists, but it's basically a teleprompter that you queue up on your laptop, and you can just practice what it's like to read from a prompter from the comfort of your room or from your home. And that's for people who want to be in front of the camera, of course. But with the internet, there are endless amounts of resources for you all to be using to better your craft. And again, this is outside of your classes. This is outside of what Emerson is asking you to do in order to earn your degree. This is what you are doing. What extra steps are you taking to better yourself as a journalist? Maybe you do a deep dive into a specific journalist or correspondent or anchor, reporter that you've always been, awed by or just fascinated by. Do a deep dive into how did they get to where they're at? There's so much that you guys can do, and now's the time to do it. So you just want to be prepared to answer that question when it comes to interview time of like, okay, Maya, what have you been doing during this time? How have you come out a better journalist? You want to be prepared to answer that with like just the best answer possible, because there is so much time and so many resources right now for you to utilize.
For sure. That's really great advice. My last question is is there anything else you'd like to add about your experience or anything about, working through this pandemic?
I think it's been a month now that we've been working from home, and I think it's going to be much longer. We've been told that it's probably going to be, it could be end of May, it could be June, it could be July. For my department specifically, we do these 1,000 people conventions, that we go out to different states and cities. And I hope that people are staying home and they're practicing social distancing, so that the things that a lot of companies and people like myself are working towards and have been working all year towards, like these big events and these big conventions that are scheduled for the end of the year, mid this year, can actually take place. And I know that everybody on my team and at CBS is doing a really great job. So I hope that other people are practicing these same practices, so to speak. And I am every day diligently, working to stay focused and just to make sure that we can get through this with a clear mindset and come out of this stronger, as opposed to confused and weaker or anything like that. But if I have any advice, again, for you guys too, or students, is the news can definitely be a point of not the most positive news all of the time. So make sure that you are taking time. And this is advice that I'm also practicing myself, is taking time every day when you wake up to just set positive intentions, do something that's going to make you feel good about yourself. And then if you want, tune into the news for a specific segment, or go online and find out what's happening, get a little update, but don't immerse yourself in all of what's going on online and on the news, because it can be very depressing and it can take you down a downward spiral. So we have to be really strong and mindful of what it is that we're watching and that we're saying and we're doing and that we're scrolling through on social media, because it's the only way that we're going to get through this, is if we sort of moderate how much of that stuff we take in while we have all this time at home. So I'm trying to practice that, and I have faith that, whether it be June or May, we sort of get through this, and we will, and we come out stronger. So, yeah.
Well, thank you, Muna, for taking the time to talk to me, and thank you for the work you're doing to keep us informed and safe. And thanks to all of you for watching this episode of Reporting from the Frontline of the Pandemic. I've been talking with Muna, the Manager of Professional Development at CBS. I'm Maya Huter.